For more on this, let's bring in Lisa Raitt, former MP and Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Thanks so much for joining us on CTV News Channel. What do you make of the Prime Minister's choices for his front bench? Is this enough of a departure from Justin Trudeau's team? As Pierre Poilievre pointed out, in just the last hour, 14 Trudeau ministers still in cabinet.
Well, the names and the faces may not have changed substantially, as Pierre said. However, it really comes down to what their actions are. So in terms of the former Liberal government, of course, with Justin Trudeau, they were very slow at executing on matters. They didn't really give certainty to business. And they weren't, I would say, as great at communicating issues as they possibly could. This is an opportunity for a new government to attempt to change all of those things, perhaps give more certainty to business, perhaps move faster on approvals, and definitely be more transparent with Canadians as to what they're attempting to do. I'm sure that the ministers who have been chosen to survive the Justin Trudeau cabinet certainly got the message that they're lucky to be sitting in cabinet instead of sitting at home unemployed. And as a result, maybe they're going to change the path that they used to take. And instead, maybe with Mr. Carney, it's going to be a different way forward.
Well, we're already hearing some criticism of some of the choices, including Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's Chief of Staff calling out the choice of Julie Debruzen as Environment Minister for her support of carbon pricing and transitioning away from fossil fuels. How might that affect a reset of relations with Alberta?
Julie Debruzen was an interesting choice. You cannot deny the fact that she has experience both in being the Parliamentary Secretary for the Environment as well as the Parliamentary Secretary for Energy and Natural Resources. The question is, where do her sensibilities lie? And I think the Premier has made a good point, because you can clearly point to things that the Minister has said in the past that would indicate that she's not necessarily pro-oil and gas. But we also have Tim Hodgson as the Minister of Natural Resources. And Scott, there's always been a tension in any cabinet, regardless of partisan stripe, between the Energy and Natural Resources Minister and the Environment Minister. Both serve different stakeholders from different points of view. So it would be natural. Both of these ministers are now in the GTA. That's my big takeaway. It really is an Ontario-centric business decision-making right now with respect to what happens in Alberta and the oil and gas sector. So I can imagine that the Premier would see this as not being particularly helpful and something to watch. But I assume she's going to want to work with whomever Mr. Carney has decided is going to be in his cabinet.
You mentioned some of the ministers, particularly representing the GTA. I want to get your thoughts on regional representation here reflected in Carney's cabinet.
Yeah, you know what? I think they've done a great attempt to get regionality. We have a minister from PEI, we have a minister from Nova Scotia, from BC and Alberta. We do see a very heavy presence in terms of Ontario and Quebec. I would point out the fact that part of cabinet making is also a political exercise, and it's looking towards how to win that majority in another iteration of an election. And as a result, you are kind of showcasing your Ontario stars to try to pick up those seats that they lost in this last election, and maybe advance their ability to get that majority that just seems to be not quite in reach at the moment.
All right, for timing, we have to leave it there right now. Lisa Raitt, former MP and Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Great pleasure. Thank you.